Last night, police in Brownsville, Texas, charged George Alvarez with 8 counts of manslaughter after his SUV slammed into a crowd of migrants waiting outside a shelter, killing 8 people and injuring 10 others. Similar shelters throughout Texas have been overwhelmed as more and more migrants are crossing the border as the U.S. prepares to end Title 42, a policy linked to the pandemic that allowed it to quickly expel migrants. Here to talk about what ending Title 42 means for his community, as well as the impact of that fatal car collision, we're joined by Democratic Congressman Vicente Gonzalez, whose district includes Brownsville. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
With Title 42 set to be lifted on Thursday, U.S. officials have said that daily crossings from Mexico could climb as high as 13,000. That's more than double the number in March. And many of the migrants are coming through Brownsville from Matamoros, Mexico. Are you prepared? Is Brownsville prepared? Do you have the resources and the infrastructure that you need?
We have done a lot of work in preparing. The Border Patrol has got a staging center. CBP is done all they can to get ready. We've done, the NGOs in the area, Catholic Charities and others have done a lot of work in preparation of a massive surge coming to our border. But I can say we could never be prepared enough. And I wish we had another 30 days to build up more infrastructure. And I think we need to also work with countries like Guatemala and Mexico to do their share in slowing the migration and coming up with ideas where we can process migrants far away from our southern border. As you may know, I've been pushing the Safe Zone Act, which does just that. It creates zones in Guatemala and Panama and Colombia and other countries where migrants can ask for asylum at that juncture. And if they're going to ultimately be let in under the credible fear standard, which we now use on the southern border, we should allow them to fly to their destination. And it does 2 things. It takes the pressure off the border and allows Border Patrol and law enforcement to do their job and what they've been trained to do. And it eliminates a lot of the cartels out of the equation that are charging thousands of dollars for these migrants to come to the southern border.
Why are you convinced that that will work? Because there are advocates who point out that the process of claiming asylum in country takes years. It takes about 2 to 3 years on average. And for people who are fleeing abject poverty, for people who are fleeing violence, they don't have 2 or 3 years to wait.
Well, they can go to a neighboring country or another country. The vast majority of people who are asking for asylum on our southern border is because of poverty. And a lot of them have been consumed into the economy of Mexico and other countries that they've trekked through. Their goal is to ultimately get to the United States. And I definitely understand it, but we need to do it in an orderly and humane way. Forcing people to walk thousands of miles through Mexico and struggle with cartels and get extorted is not really humane. And I think we need to build infrastructure far away from our border. And ultimately, if we're going to allow asylum seekers into the country, allow them in from that juncture. Yeah, I mean, it's the most orderly, humane, and safe way we could do it.
There are people who say that the right to apply for asylum on U.S. soil is sacrosanct. But what I hear you say is that that's no longer practical.
I think our asylum laws are antiquated, and they're 70 years on the books, and they don't really adapt to the days that we're living now. Ultimately, we have people from all over the world coming to our southern border asking for asylum, and small communities like McAllen and Brownsville and Weslaco and Laredo and even El Paso don't have the resources to act as the federal government would, and we don't have massive staging centers for potentially hundreds of thousands of people showing up at once. I had a conversation with the president of Guatemala a few days ago. I know there's about 20 or 30,000 people holding up on the other side of the border now. There's about 60,000 making their way here. And there's approximately, he told me there was about 200,000 coming through Central America, that through the Darien area in Colombia and Panama. That is a massive amount of people that if they all showed up at one time, I don't know that we have the resources in place and the infrastructure in place to deal with it properly.
The Brownsville community is still reeling from that incident this past weekend when a man plowed his SUV into a number of people, 8 people, mostly men from Venezuela, died. What more can you share with us about the findings of the investigation as it comes together? And how are folks in Brownsville processing all of this?
Yes, so our hearts and prayers have gone out to the families of the 8 Venezuelans and the 10 who have been injured, who were casualties of the confusion and overstressed area along the border right now. There is nothing to show that this was a hate crime or that was anything other than an accident. Apparently, the driver might have been under the influence of alcohol or drugs. So that's the information I'm getting. I don't believe it was intentional, and we're still listening to law enforcement reports that are coming out. But that's the last report that I received, that it looks like it was just a tragic accident.
Well, our thoughts are certainly with those affected. Congressman Vicente Gonzalez, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.